ChatGPT is great, but it doesn't have any of your local information, any of your documents, any of your business or customer information, because it's a cloud-based system, and for GDPR and security purposes, you cannot put your data into one of these systems. So what I did recently with Enterprise Ireland as part of the New Frontiers project was to create my own system called GobanSeer, which is a document intelligence system. I built this from scratch, and I tried to add as much bells and whistles as possible. So where do we start? This is a RAG system, that's retrieval augmented generation. That means that this has access to libraries of documents. So we have all of your documents, and you can create different libraries. For example, I have business documents, books on psychology, books on sport, and they're all separated differently. And I can have a conversation with those documents. I can ask questions about those documents individually by highlighting a specific library, or I can have a query about all of my libraries. So for example, if I created a system like this where I had all of my emails or all of my client cases, I could have them in all of my libraries. I could have my libraries by year. So I could query a particular year, or I could query all of the years in one go. In this instance, I can have a conversation with, for example, my business documents if I want to. The system is actually quite intelligent in that not only does it use the common vector searches, I've also added in a system called knowledge graphs. Now, knowledge graphs take a little bit longer to add, so while the knowledge graph is being added to the system, while it is reading your information and creating a knowledge graph, you can instantly do a vector search on your information. You can also do what's called a naive or simple search, which is like a keyword search on your information. You can see that the graph is indexing at the moment, so the graph is not available for this particular library. I also will have, when the graph is finished, as well as being able to do a vector search or a knowledge graph search, I've also got a hybrid search where I can combine the output of the vector search and the graph search for an even more accurate search if I was having a conversation with data, if I'm looking for insights from my own data. The system also re-ranks using flash rank, so it re-ranks the responses as well. So again, it's very, very accurate. If I'm just having a chat with this information, if I'm just want to have the quickest response I can, I have streaming enabled. Now, streaming is fine for chatbots or for quick queries, but if I want a deep conversation with the information, I want to make sure that all of the information is captured and processed slowly, then I would disable streaming, and that will take a little bit longer to give me a response, but the system will give me a response that is very accurate. The good thing with this system is that it is entirely local. This is running not in the cloud, but this is using a local model. So I have access to a number of different models on my system. The Gemma 3 is one of my favorites from Gemini, from Google. I also have some larger models as well, depending on what I'm looking to do. And then I also have a number of system prompts that I can use. So rather than just having a direct conversation with the information, I can actually create specified or particular agents who can carry out different actions for me. So just sort of default or concise, detailed or technical responses. Or I've also created this data analyst response as well. So basically I can use this to analyze the data. I don't have to retype this prompt every time, and I can save these system prompts. Very, very handy if I was having very particular responses that I wanted to do. I can tell the system to act in a particular way and save that response. And of course, a fun one there if I wanted to have it responding like a pirate. So you can create those system prompts and use those system prompts. You can see at the moment I'm using the Gemma 3 model, and I'm also using the data analyst prompt. So that would do a data analysis on that. For one of the systems that has completed the knowledge graph search, so for example, if I was to look at all of the models available to me, particular, maybe the sports one, actually, we'll just see is that one has been not completely vectorized. Okay, so it's not available just yet. If I go to all, I should be able to look at a knowledge graph that would show all of the knowledge which has been stored so far. We'll see if that will work to us. This is the difference with a system like this. So this allows me to do a knowledge graph. So I'll look at an interesting one like a grid. What knowledge graphs do is it looks at how the information is interconnected. It's not just that the information is in the system, but it can visually give you a representation of how things work. So for example, I have my sports library, 2 documents in my sports library, and that has been referenced. And this shows you in the knowledge graph, for example, you can see that this node here, there's 117 nodes and 57 edges. This particular node here has a lot of attachments to it. So if I zoom in on this particular node, you can see that this particular node is heart rate. And of course, in running, in training, a heart rate is connected to a lot of things. Now, for example, a benefit to this is that if you had a lot of customer case notes or customer information, and you were to add it in, the system would automatically reference and create this knowledge graph for you. And you may see connections which you didn't know that the system is picking up and putting there. So it's a great way of visually representing insights that you might not already know and understanding how your information is connected. That's a grid. I also like the circle option as well. So you can see again that is creating a circle of all of the different nodes. And if I zoom in again, we can see that this is heart rate for exercises is something that is connected to a lot of different parts of that. So again, a fantastic way of visualizing your data. I think it's an exceptional little tool. And again, I've built this from scratch as well. It's a JavaScript plugin that I've created on top of the existing databases. So another thing which I've just finished off is the chat history. So after I've had a conversation with my information, if I've reviewed or interviewed it, I have chat history. So these are some of the recent queries that I've carried out. And you can see that it's quite interesting in the way that it does this. So I can have a conversation. Can you tell me about the documents here? And it will review the documents. It'll give me feedback, particularly on the documents. And it will also give me the references to them. So I can see the sources. This is where it is taking the information from and what it is read it to. And I can also see I was using a custom prompt, and the search mode that I used was hybrid. So that is a combination of the vector search and the graph knowledge as well. So it's a very accurate response that I got. So for I suppose for transparency purposes, a system like this is quite good in that it stores your information, stores not only the query that was asked, but also the type of search that was carried out. So very, very good. So I can create as many knowledge libraries as I want. I can just create a new library. I can call it whatever I want, create a description to create that library. Once the library is created, then I can upload documents to whichever library I want, and it will begin indexing straight away. And as I said, for the likes of the that library which is just created, we can say that it is still the knowledge graphing actually takes quite a while, but the vector search is fairly fast. So those documents are available for either a local search, a vector only search, or a naive search almost immediately, while that indexing happens in the background. So again, you can have an immediate conversation with your documents, and then later on, once that graph has finished, you can have a more detailed and more trustworthy conversation with your documents. So there you go. That is the GobanSeer, the local RAG solution that I built over the last couple of months from scratch, running in the browser, running locally on my laptop. And that is completely disconnected from the internet. That is a safe, secure, local document solution for private data. So now that I have some information in the database, a couple of books are there, and I want to ask some questions about our information. Again, this is not connected to ChatGPT. This is a local system, so I could ask it, can you give me some Insights on setting up a... So this is from the business documents which I have stored, and I'm doing a vector search on this. So it's just going to read the documents that are stored in the database that I have. This isn't using ChatGPT. This is a local based system, so I'm reading the documents which I have. The system is checking to see whether there's any relevant information based on the query that I've got. You can see that it's connecting to the system. It takes a little bit to pull that information back. So this is what's called a retrieval. And then the generation part is where it takes that searched information and then creates an answer for me. So generates an answer for me. So that's retrieval augmented generation. So it takes a couple of seconds for it to do that. And then you can see the answer that you have. So this is a very accurate answer based on the information which we have stored in our database. So you can see here it's given me some information, some insights as I've requested about setting up a business. And then the part which makes this realistic and which means that it hasn't hallucinated anything is that it actually shows you the reference documents and it shows you how relevant they are to the question. So this is a book on starting a business, starting your own business, entrepreneur's guide. So you can see it has ranked those documents in order. So that's where that re-ranking comes into place. So the 97%, 96.7% ranking. So that is the data that is gathered, and then this is the response which I've gotten back from that. So quite an interesting system.